Hello, everybody at home. Welcome to the Identified podcast. It's been a minute, hey? It's been a minute. I'm so excited to be back. It's been quite hectic for me, work-wise, but I'm really excited, and I do apologize for just going off the radar without saying anything. Otherwise, the Identified podcast is still around, very much around, and I am definitely back. Remember, we are inspired by this book, Identified, which was launched last year. So if you haven't bought your copy, please tell me why. Can you just type and tell me why you haven't bought your copy? Because you are definitely missing out. I'm actually quite excited as well that in July, I will be releasing the children's version of Identified called Who Am I? But anyway, we're not here to talk about that today. Today, we're going to have some interesting conversations as usual. As you know, that we are about working out our salvation. You know, how do we discover and just maintain our identity in the Lord? So I am not solo, as always. I think the last podcast I was alone, but today I'm definitely not alone. I'm with a very beautiful woman. I don't know, in church they love introducing women or men and they would say he is single or she is single. I don't know why, but yeah, well, I am with, I call her Pastor B. Her name is Beulah Mashishi, and she's going to introduce herself to you. I'm quite excited and looking forward to the conversation. And you are beautiful. You look beautiful. You are welcome to the Identified podcast. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Beulah Mashishi, a born-again child of God, the beloved of God.
Of course. I think you
I
are
mean-
God's favorite.
The delight of God
Yeah.
herself. And it's a privilege and an honor to be here with you today.
It's awesome to have you here. I'm quite honored actually to have you here. And like I said, excited as well.
Yes.
And what B didn't mention is that she is one of three sisters, ne?
Yes,
So she's like
correct.
always with her sisters and the mom. So it's like this three musketeers, ne? And the mom. So yeah, and yeah, when you see them, you will see that they're definitely sisters. B, talking
Yes.
about your name,
Yes.
I want us to talk about that. When I started knowing you I think it's 3 years ago now or so, or
Yeah.
2 years ago, you were Mapula Mashishi.
Correct.
And yeah, the next thing, muna hausa na mapula, you know, kibula, wama billion, and I'm like, okay, so tell us about that.
Yes. Yeah, it's been a journey and very true. When we met, I was called Mapula.
Yeah.
I was called Mapula Johanna. And I was named after my grandmother
Okay.
from my father's side.
Okay.
Right. But the journey began, it's more than 5 years ago when this whole thing started of the whole changing of names, right? In that, there was a Sunday actually when we were at church.
Yeah.
Great Light Church.
Yeah.
And there was ministry, and I think we were doing like a prophetic, it was a prophetic service.
Yes.
And that's where everything started.
Yeah.
Right? In that after that prophetic service, that's where everything changed. I remember I had a dream.
Yeah.
Right? And in this dream, I saw my mother in the Lord.
Yes.
In
Yes.
this dream, prophetess Faith, right? And then in this dream, I saw myself sort of rushing to her,
Yeah.
right? And then she asked me in the dream as I was rushing, she said, "What is your name?" And then I said, "Beulah." And then she had this trophy in her hand and she handed it over to me
Yeah.
after I said, "I'm Beulah." And then that's where it all began. As I woke up from that dream, I knew right there that the Lord is addressing the issue
Of your name.
of my name.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's where the whole journey began. And as I said, it's almost, because it's definitely more than 5 years ago.
Okay.
Right? So it was the whole journey. So for me, I was like, yeah, that's just my spiritual name.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then from there, I started naming things that I was doing after that name. Like if I would start a business, I would call it Beulah.
If you buy a car, the car's name is Beulah.
You know? So, yeah, I kept that name in my heart. I didn't use it so much.
Yeah.
So we just discuss about it in the family. And then until last year, you know?
Yeah.
Until last year again, around September, the Lord once again revisited this issue of the name.
Yeah.
Again, through the man of God.
Yeah.
You know, the man of God, Apostle Joshua.
Yeah.
You know, where just before my birthday, I got a message from him, you know, just confirming, saying, you know what, the Lord says he has won the battle of names. You are Beulah, from Isaiah 62. And right there, I knew that this here was my birthday present. It was time to change the name, because prior to that, my mother was also talking to me about it, to say, when are you going to change your name?
Yeah.
And I was just giving excuses to say, I'll go, because I was thinking, oh, the work,
Yeah.
you know, changing banks, there's changes there. So I was busy putting it off.
Yeah.
Until then, last year, September, I knew
that you have
now
to do it.
it has to be official.
So do you think you took long, or do you think you needed to take that long just for you to be Beulah, to become Beulah, so that when you ultimately change the name, you know, it can actually manifest? Because, I mean, Beulah means beautiful. What does it mean?
It actually means married land.
Married land.
Yes,
I always remember this. I don't know. I was thinking about something else, but I want to talk about. So it's quite interesting, Pastor B, about the name change, because it's sort of unheard of, especially in our culture. I mean, as an African, you've been given a name. I don't want to say it's a taboo, but it's like probably an insult to your parents to wake up tomorrow and say, by the way, God says I must change my name. But it seems like your mom was quite receptive of it, which we are thankful for. And I recall that as I was growing up, in Setswana we have there's this tradition, or I think it's culture. There's this tradition that when you struggle to have a child, or maybe you were having miscarriages or stillborns, then the next child that you have, should they actually live, you know, like they are full term and they get to be born and live, you must give them just like horrible names. I don't know if you know about that. Not really.
Not
In
really.
Setswana, so there's that tradition where I come from. So a person will just be given like this horrible name, almost like to say, whether they live or die, it's like you don't want to be attached, but they don't realize that you are actually declaring or speaking upon a child by the name that you are giving them.
Exactly.
So I also understand that the Lord wanted to call you Beulah, but do you think there were issues with the name Mapula? what do you think that name did for you or for your life or in your life?
Yeah. You know, I believe so much that your name is attached to your destiny,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And as I said, that the names that I was given, they're from my grandmother. And I began to see patterns in my life,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
that looked like those from my grandmother.
Yeah.
And those were patterns that are not nice, that I didn't like, you know.
Yeah.
So there I saw that, you know what, there is a problem, you know. So hence, it was something that I was actually praying into, but I did not think that it would come to the point where I changed the name.
Yeah.
But I would say, example, in prayer, I would be like, Lord, anything that followed my grandmother that's not of God,
Yeah.
I cancel it, it will not follow my life.
Yeah.
But little did I know that the Lord actually had a different plan of totally changing my
Changing
name.
even your
Yes,
name.
you know, and
Yeah.
calling me Beulah. So as I said, it's related to destiny.
Yeah.
So with your name, you know, just saying this, I just remember scriptures actually.
Yeah.
You know, that even our Lord Jesus Christ, when he was named, right, you would see in the scriptures, the word would say he would be called Emmanuel, and then, you know, and then to that attach purpose,
Yeah.
because he will do this, he
Yeah.
will do this.
Yeah.
So I so much believe that my name as well had to be changed,
Yeah.
so that my destiny would align.
Would align.
Yes.
Abraham, was God could have still given Abraham the nations like he promised without,
Exactly.
but he had to change his name.
Exactly.
Jacob had to change his name. So
Yes,
that
yes.
tells you the importance.
Yes,
And like you're saying, how actually your destiny could be tied
Correct.
to your name.
Correct. So the fulfillment of my destiny
Yeah.
is so much attached to my name. So hence the name had to change.
Yeah.
So that what the Lord said about me in the beginning
Yeah.
would be fulfilled.
Yeah.
So
And to somebody who is hesitating, my aunt actually is one of the people that have received a word as well that she needs to change her name. And she's even been told why. And she also had to sit and look back, reflect in her life. And she can actually see that there's something about her name that has somehow caused certain misfortunes in her life. But even to this day, B, she hasn't changed her name. She will tell you about home affairs this and then that and then that.
Yeah.
But of course, even in that, I'm sure some of the reasons are valid, but you know that even valid reasons are usually excuses, or it could actually be just delay, you know, from the enemy or discouragement. What do you say to somebody who they know there's a certain change they need to make in their lives? Mind you, it might not even be a name. It
Yeah.
might be something else, but that particular thing is tied up to their destiny. How do you encourage somebody to just get up and do it?
yeah. So, you know, I would say these things, it's a process.
Yeah, yeah.
The Lord would say a word to you, and then it's up to us to take it up in prayer.
Yeah.
You know, to constantly
Yeah.
have a conversation with the Lord. But above all, boldness as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
boldness to just get up and just do it, because it seems like it's a long process and all that, but I realized actually
It's not as
when
bad.
I decided,
Yeah.
you know, when I decided, and then it wasn't bad at all. It was actually a very easy process.
I mean, when we get married, we change our
Exactly.
surnames and life goes back to normal.
Exactly, you know. So I would encourage that person that, you know what, process it with the Lord. Of course, you know, these things, you need to just sit with the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, and process that whole thing, what it means to you. But now a decision has to be made at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I would say boldness, as long as you have the guarantee, you know, as long as you have the guarantee, because the Lord, especially when we are children of God, He speaks to us in multiple ways.
Yeah.
You know, so as I said, for me, He spoke it once,
Yeah.
you know, and then again it came the
Yes.
second time. You know, so
Yeah.
I believe the Lord was also giving me time to process it.
Yeah.
You know, but boldness plays a very vital role. To
Yeah.
just get up, be bold and say, you know what, this is my destiny.
Yeah.
The Lord has spoken it and He has confirmed.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm going to rise up and do this thing.
Yeah, and I love what you say when you say process it, because I guess sometimes we think you receive an instruction and you act immediately.
Yeah.
And it's hardly the case. And I suppose because God also knows us, that's why He's also faithful enough to come back and confirm it,
Exactly.
you know, or say it again, or say it through whether it's a man or woman of God, or say it through somebody else. And yeah, we grateful for that. So I
Yeah.
guess one really just have to be patient with themselves. But I suppose also patience, one needs to pray about it, or the processing has to be something that you pray about, lest you border into disobedience, right?
Exactly.
Because, yeah, disobedience can also, yeah. Okay, so now that you are Pastor B, you are Beulah, what would you say was the significance of changing the name, whether it's in how you felt afterwards or the happenings in your life? Did you experience any transformation or a change in how you perceive yourself, in how you receive yourself, in how you see yourself, or just your life generally?
Yeah. There are a lot of changes that I've seen.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, this name comes from the book of Isaiah, chapter
Yes.
62.
Yes.
And, you know, that's become one of my main scriptures, you know?
Yeah.
That's become one of my main scriptures, and I see the Lord at work.
Yeah.
You know, starting from chapter 1 there, the Lord, you know, would say, kings shall behold you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so in that chapter in its own, God addresses my value, you know, how valuable I am to Him.
Yeah.
You know, and then He also addresses that I will be amongst kings
Yeah.
because of this name. And then He also says that I am His delight. So
Yeah.
He has been through this chapter addressing issues of my identity. To say, you know what, you are my beloved.
Yeah.
You are beautiful. Because,
Yeah.
again, this name means beautiful land.
Yeah.
You are beautiful.
Yeah.
So through this changing of name, I'm going through that whole process with the Lord of discovering my value in the Lord, of discovering that I am beautiful to the Lord,
Yeah.
that He delights.
He delights,
He delights
in you.
in me. You know, as it goes down, He says, I will not rest
Yeah. Until.
until.
Oh my word.
You know, so
yeah.
this has given me such a guarantee, especially for those areas in my life.
Yeah.
You know, where I said, I'm believing God for this, and it has seemed like they were not happening.
Yes.
But with this changing of name, the Lord is addressing such issues to say, you know what, rest. Because I will not rest until you are established.
Yeah.
So this has become an establishment.
An establishment.
An establishment for me, you know, and also my value, comfort in the Lord to say
Yeah.
I'm valuable to Him.
Yeah.
He says, I will not rest. So
He cares that much
He cares
about
that
you.
much. He cares that much, you know, to say what I've said about you will happen.
Will happen.
Yes, yes.
Sure. So I think I actually want to close that off by sharing my own journey about my name, right? And I think I also share it in the book. It's the very last chapter in the book. I recall that when I was born, I only had a Setswana name because somehow the English name my mother just rejected. You know, she. So do you still have Johanna, by the way, in your?
No, both are removed.
Okay,
Mapula,
so
Johanna gone.
Mapula Johanna gone.
It's only
Yeah, so my English name was also towards the lines of Tabu Johanna. You know, I actually had somebody the other time saying, but how do you call a child such a name? I mean, that baby with that name, they shouldn't. Like the name is so it sounds so old, I suppose, because it's old names. But it was not Johanna, it was just some names. And by the way, we don't want to condemn anyone.
Yeah.
If you love your name, you love your name, you are proud of your name, and your parents have given you the name, or whoever that has given, the name, by all means embrace it. But I think what we are trying to shine the light on is that there is something in your name. Your name is not just a name. It's not just a random happening in your life. It is tied to your destiny, like you had B said earlier. And that's why even when you look at the Bible, where God will change people's names as their destinies are shifting or they're actually, aligning. So we're not saying go to Home Affairs if your name is Mapula or whatever the name is. It usually depends. Let it be a revelation. Let it be something that you personally feel convicted of, that there's just something offish. And I think that's the whole point of being identified in the Lord, is that He starts to reveal certain things about your life or in your life that could perhaps be hampering your destiny or your purpose, so that's all. So I wanted to close off this by sharing about my name. So my mom rejected that English name, and so I didn't have an English name for a while. I only had a Setswana name, and that is Ntupeng. You would have seen the initial N in my books. And then I think I was sickly as a baby, and she kept on taking me to this doctor who couldn't pronounce my name. And one day this doctor just got tired, and he was like, I'm giving this child a name. Her name is Cleopatra. And my mother was like, well, I love the name, so she kept the name, and the name became part of my identity. But it was not until 2 or 3 years ago as well, when I had an interaction with Apostle Joshua and Prophetess Faith, when they actually asked me, what does your name mean? And I didn't know what my name means. I didn't know. I just knew that I had a cool name, Cleopatra, but I didn't know what it means. And we Googled it together. We discovered Cleopatra means the glory of the Father. You can imagine how, man, I became so emotional. And I think for me, that's why I closed this chapter on that, to say, I looked back and to say, but Lord, you really love me that much. You care about me that much, that you decided to pick some doctor from wherever to come and declare, upon my life that this right here is the glory of the Father. He probably didn't even know. I'm sure he was just giving a cool name as well. But God knew what he was doing. Even though I am only discovering it decades later, it has such a significant and a profound meaning. And maybe just to also go back to you as you close on the name issue. Do you think I think I want to ask about the timing of it as well. When the Lord now tells you about your new name, you know, why do you think it was around that particular time? Why do you think it was not earlier? Why do you think it was not revealed to your mom, for example, that this is Beulah? Why do you think, you know, some of the things it's only I discover when I'm like 30 something years old, but
Yeah.
Cleopatra is the glory of the Father.
Yes, yes. You know, I think it has to do with the timings and the purposes of God. Because God wants us to come into the fullness of our purpose. So as I said, this confirmation, it came right at the time of my birthday.
Oh yeah.
And the apostle didn't even know that it's in few days it was my
Yeah.
birthday.
Yeah.
So I believe that at this age, you know, that
Yeah.
I was coming into,
Yes.
the Lord was saying there are certain things that need to be fulfilled in your life. You know,
Fullness of time.
fullness of time. So this came, I believe, right just at the right time.
Just at the
to
right
say,
time.
this is now your time. You must come into the fullness of your purpose.
Sure.
And it cannot happen with this name.
Sure.
You know what?
Yeah.
You must be called with the name that I intended. as my
Sure.
Father, with the name that God Himself, you know, as I said, I love that chapter. It says, this is the name that the mouth of the Lord, you know, has named.
Sure.
So it comes directly from the mouth of God. So
Yeah.
this had to do with the fullness of purpose.
Yeah.
To say, I am coming, and I know even now, you know, in my life that there's fulfillment of certain purposes
Yeah.
that must happen.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
this came just at the right time
Yeah.
for the fulfillment of what God said about me at this time and at this age.
Sure. That's amazing, Pastor B. And you know what? I think with everybody that is watching, we stand together with you in agreement and in unity for the establishment of what the Lord is doing through you. And that indeed the name, the changing of the name was, you know, a sign. It is a sign and a wonder. It just goes to establish that which He has already begun in your life.